what does it take to be a leader, right? How do you grow from top performer to excellent leader? Well, the great news is we're going to find out. Today, I'm talking to Ryan Hawk. He's a keynote speaker and author and advisor, host of the Learning Leader Show. It's a podcast with millions of listeners in more than 150 countries. And he's author of the new book coming out very soon, Welcome to Management, How to Grow from Top Performer to Excellent Leader. Now, Ryan is a lifelong student of leadership. He rose to roles as a professional quarterback and as a VP of sales at a multi-billion-dollar software company. Currently, as the head of Brixey & Myers Leadership Advisory Practice, he speaks at Fortune 500 companies. He works with teams and players in the NFL, NBA, and NCAA, and facilitates leadership circles that offer structured guidance and collaborative feedback to new and experienced leaders. And I am jacked to talk to him. What's up, Ryan? How are you?
Wow, Phil. I love this, man. Thanks for having me. I've been following your work for, I think, years. So it's really cool. It's cool to get a chance to talk with you one-on-one, learn a little bit more about you and how you help sales professionals. I mean, that's sales is in my DNA, man. My dad was a sales leader for 40 years, and now he's, fortunately for him, getting to hang out in Florida and retire. And so that was my first job for 12 years of my life was in selling. And technically, we're all in sales every day anyway, as you know. But you're definitely speaking my language, man. So it's good to be here.
Cool. I'm glad you're here. So I'd be remiss, though. I'm from Wisconsin. Your brother's AJ Hawk. So how does it feel to be the more successful brother of a professional football player? That's what I want to know.
How would you define success, Phil?
Well, you're talking to me, and he hasn't yet, so that makes you a bigger success to me.
It feels great. No, I mean, it's cool. I'm very fortunate. I think a lot of any of the success I've had, I got to grow up next to a world-class performer who's the hardest working person I've ever met, next to my wife, Miranda, in the world. And so it is really cool. We're only 2 years apart, so we got to play together all through our upbringing to see the success he's had on the football field and off of it. Just super, super proud, man.
Cool. I bet you are, man. So he played hard for us, and certainly we're all proud of him too, Ryan. So that's
I love that you say us, like the Packers. And that's the cool thing about like Green Bay and being at Lambeau is it is such a family-oriented environment. We were so lucky and fortunate to get to go there for 9 years. And every time I walk into that stadium for another game, I look around and there'd be people, grown men, crying, arms up. Oh my goodness! Like they've checked off the biggest marker on their bucket list. And it was a good reminder to never take it for granted for those 9 years. It could end at any moment. Just enjoy and appreciate every single moment in there with my family. And we sure did, man. It was fun.
That's cool. Yeah, the frozen tundra of Tahoe Field.
We saw some cold ones.
No doubt. That's fun. Well, my 18th cousin twice removed is Bill Jarts, who does the announcing inside the stadium.
Oh, cool.
Sure he's called up more than a few of your brother's tackles.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. Nice.
So cool, man. Well, cool. So I got to tell you, so you shift from sales into this leadership thing. So why the shift, Ryan? Why did you move from sales into leadership and now passionate about management?
Well, I started my podcast, The Learning Leader Show, about 5 years ago, 350 episodes worth. I started originally, Phil, because I had gotten my MBA and my company paid for it, and I was looking to go back to school again to use some of the company reimbursement money for furthering education. And I just so happened to get lucky enough to be introduced to a guy named Todd Wagner, who's Mark Cuban's business partner, who he started broadcast.com with. And I had a long dinner with Todd and a lot of one-on-one time with him. And he told me the details of creating the business and the tough moments and the good moments until he eventually was sitting across from the table from the leaders at Yahoo and said, look, you're either going to buy us or you're going to have to compete with us. And him and Mark walked away selling the company for $5.7 billion, making them both billionaires. Mark went on to buy the Mavericks and be on Shark Tank, and Todd went on to a more philanthropic route. And so I just, the one aspect of that conversation, though, that I loved, or that I regretted, I should say, is that I didn't have it recorded. I wanted to share it with my friends. I wanted to share it with people I was working with. I wanted to share it with other people so they could learn along with me. And that's where the idea of, instead of going back to college or studying to get another graduate degree, Why don't I create my own leadership PhD program? I can have long form conversations like you and I are having today, learn directly from the teachers that I choose, right? The types that have led businesses, led teams, whether it's CEOs of billion-dollar companies, or it's a professional athlete or a Navy SEAL or a best-selling author. I'd like to have direct conversations with them, record them, and then share it so others could learn along with me. And it just so happens, as you know, when you are willing to put your material out there on the internet for all to judge, to see, to learn from, it could create a great opportunity for you. And like you and I were talking before we started recording, that it has happened for you as it's had for me. And it caught the eye of a great friend of mine named Doug Meyer. He's become a great friend. Doug runs and founded and runs Brixey and Meyer, which is started as a tax and accounting firm and is now branched out to be more of a consulting firm. And he said, I want to start a leadership advisory practice. And based on everything I've heard and seen you do, I want you to be the guy to run it, to lead it, full autonomy and trust to do it. And we came to a really, I think, fair agreement, and that was 2.5 years ago, and now here we are. So I'm fortunate to do the work I love full time, and it started because it caught the eye and the ear of a really successful leader who has sustained excellence over many years, and now we work together.
Wow, that's awesome, right? It's amazing what happens when we can be vulnerable and real and really find where we're hitting it at all 16 cylinders, if you will. Right?
You have to share, or maybe a little bit, I don't know how much you can share about how this impacted you. I mean, because you're recruited to do what you do now because you had the guts to share what you believe, share your ideas online, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So my position at Vector Solutions as a VP of sales training absolutely is a direct result of being super visible on LinkedIn and other places as well. I mean, my boss had seen, I'm sure, at least a couple hours of my videos, probably listened to a couple podcasts. He admits that he's not a big reader. So the fact that I had multimedia was really big. And absolutely, then a recruiter found me and said, you are the perfect fit, because I'm a non-traditional sales trainer. By that, I'm not in HR. I could still carry a bag if I wanted to, right? I could still crush some quota because I know how to ask questions. I know how to be interested. So that's really what sales is all about. Learning the product, learning the solution, learning all of that. Absolutely. That's important too. Learning our market for sure. Super important, but absolutely. We have to be seen as someone of value first before anybody's going to listen. And I call that add value before you add volume. And so absolutely, Ryan, that's absolutely what I did. I was out there for years and years and years. I mean, I started my podcast. The first time was in 2006, and I've done a bunch of iterations. I was featured in What Nobody Tells You About Blogging and Podcasting, and actually got to interview Seth Godin in 2008 when Meatball Sunday came out on the telephone. Back when
way before everybody else got to him, huh?
That's right.
That's incredible. Yeah.
So yeah, man. So I totally live what you do, and think that's really, first what you said, and really important. I just want to say that again, is I was really good at what I did. That's what you said, right? Without saying that in so many words, but I demonstrated proficiency. And when we think about new leaders and new managers, that's often why we get promoted, right? Because we demonstrate a proficiency at the job we have so we can get promoted. So talk to us about how that individual contributor role is very different than the management leadership role.
Well, that's the biggest problem. So I wrote this book, Welcome to Management, as a kind of my welcome to management moment. What happens in most places, and this is maybe changing, but from all of my research, it's still similar. They look at, in my case, I was in the profession of selling, as you are, and they looked at the people who finished in the top 3 or 4 in the sales stack rankings when there was a management job opening. This was a regular occurrence. And then they'd say, okay, you 3 or 4 are going to have the opportunity to interview because you've shown that you're good at the job. So we assume you'll be good at teaching the job. And that's exactly how I got in the room to interview. And I think I was able to get the job at a pretty young age because of my background before coming into the profession, which is he was a quarterback on the football field in college and a little bit after college. So we assume he's got some good leadership skills. You get promoted, and then you get promoted and quickly realize I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I'm not prepared for this job. I've developed some leadership skills from being a quarterback on the football field, and some of them translate, but more than not, it was different. As an individual sales professional, I was responsible for crushing my quota. That's pretty much it. I mentored some people here and there, but that was basically my job. As a manager, you're now responsible for the success of your team, of leading, coaching, and managing each of your 15 direct reports. Completely different job. And I vividly remember, Phil, my first week, it was about 3 days after I'd gotten promoted. And I'm sitting in a chair, this nice Herman Miller chair. I'm looking out the window, which I never have. I have a door that actually shuts, right? I'm like decorating, feeling really good. And all of a sudden, at my doorstep, or at the area where my door was, I see one of my now direct reports. She was in her mid 40s. I was in my mid 20s, and it looked like she was crying. And she comes in and she shuts my door and says, "Ryan," and starts kind of quivering a little bit. "My husband cheated on me. He wants a divorce." And I said, in my head, "Why in the world are you telling me this? This is not my job." And in fact, it is your job. That's part of being a boss, part of being a manager, part of being a leader. When people report to you, you have to understand that there's 15 different personalities and ways that they operate. And I had not thought of different ways to approach a boss. I just assumed everybody did it like me, right? I was selfish, I was young, I was immature, and I didn't know any of that. And so my goal with writing this book is hopefully to help prepare people to be better for that situation and to handle it better than I did, so they won't be a bad boss initially for the first 12 to 18 months. And unfortunately, I was, and I don't want other people to do the same, because that's such an important role in any organization of those frontline managers.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite interesting. I didn't get quite that baptism by fire. I had someone that I had to fire within 3 days.
How was that?
It was brutal, man. It's the hardest thing I ever did. It's a big dude, and he broke down crying. I had to terminate him within 3 days of getting promoted. It was so hard.
Did you do it well? Did you?
No, of course not. Of course not. No. In fact, thank goodness for my friend Kathy Murtis. If Murdy hadn't been there, I don't know I don't think I'd have fired her.
Was that your boss, or?
No, she was one of the other managers that was involved in the situation. So I had to fire him for not performance, but for something else. Yep. And it was brutal, man. It was the hardest thing I ever did.
Yep.
And thankfully it got easier, right?
I remember that my first one too, I actually was nervous, and I was lucky to have a really caring and loving boss. And I asked him to come with me to help me out, and he did help me out. And also, though, somebody had given me the idea that the person, it was a different woman, that she may be hostile. So I was like, okay. They go, "So you should probably have security there." I go, "Wow, really?" So I actually called security to have them with me in the meeting. My boss is here, their security, and she's looking at me like, "What are you doing?" And it was the worst. I stumbled, didn't do it well. My boss had to jump in. It was a mess. So I don't like it, but there was a section that I had to write all about the process of unfortunately firing somebody, which is the worst part of the job.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Although I will say, though, getting told that someone's getting cheated on isn't exactly the most pleasant part of the job.
It was terrible. It was terrible. Unfortunately, if you manage long enough, that will unfortunately happen, and it did. And I still think about, like, get this, like, feeling in my stomach that I just felt awful about it. She is doing completely fine now. Yeah. Everything's good, but it's been years. But it was awful in the moment.
Wow. No doubt. Wow. So I got to ask, before we get really into the book here, so what's the highlight of so far of your management or leadership career? What's the best thing?
It's funny. My previous role, I was a VP of North American sales for a multi-billion-dollar company, and I did that job for exactly 1 year before I was afforded the opportunity to do what I do now full time. And the fact that I still receive really thoughtful, kind, caring emails from both the managers and the reps that I worked with, because we were only together for a year, for a short period of time. I was hired from the outside, so I wasn't promoted from within. So they didn't know me before I got the job. So I just feel so much joy out of still having regular dialogue with people who I tried my best to serve and to lead. I felt like I learned a good amount, and I was prepared for that job primarily because I was having regular conversations on my podcast on the side. So I was learning so much that I think it made me better at the job. And the fact that you can see the impact years more than, now much more time has passed since the amount of time I was with them, that I still get have correspondence with them, really makes me feel good. And like the impact was a net positive.
Wow. That's awesome. Yeah, that whole preparation piece that you got to do by having those regularly scheduled conversations really help you think differently. It helps you assess things. And I would say, if you're anything like me, right, selfishly, you probably ask questions that are happening right in the moment so that you can get the answers to them, so we can speed up our learning curve, right?
Exactly. And I'm thinking of real life problems or issues or challenges or successes that I'm going through, and I'm able to lean on some of the most thoughtful, smartest leaders in the world in real time. And so like I know that my process is I'm going to consistently be better at this because of what I'm doing on the side. So I always urge people to have some sort of side hustle or something they're doing on the side that helps really, I guess, get their brain in regular action. That can then, you can bring it back and make your company even better because you're excited about this learning on the side. So I'm all about, like, I had one guy I worked with who was a great sales professional, and he owned a CrossFit gym, and he absolutely loved it. So he had to run a business, and he ran it with his wife, and were there days where he probably had to go to his gym and do, business owner stuff? Of course he did. But he ended up being one of my absolute best sales professionals because he was genuinely excited about his life. He loved what he was doing, both at work and certainly on the side with his wife. And I encourage that. I think people are missing the boat if they think the side hustle could be a detractor. And in most cases, I think it's a positive for someone to be doing that.
Yeah, I agree, right? The side can often become the thing that actually amps us up to give us the fuel to be better during the day, which is really powerful, right? Really powerful because, frankly, I mean, especially when you're a new manager, the thought is that, boy, if I could just work harder, I could speed up the learning curve, right? And by harder, I don't mean harder. I mean, if I could work longer. So Ryan, if I could just work 168 hours this first week, I can, right? Can I cut my learning curve down? Is that chapter 1 of the book? It says, no, I didn't see that. So work yourself to death. That's not a good strategy, you think?
Well, you got to understand your own kind of operating rhythm and figure out what's best for you. But I don't know if that's sustainable.
Yeah. For sure, right? For sure. So as we're transitioning here, again, from IC into manager, I love the fact that you make it really clear that chapter 1, the first thing you got to do, the first section, is about leading yourself. Yeah. I think a lot of people miss this, right? They are not leading themselves. So let's talk about why leading yourself is really the best management leadership thing you can do.
Well, you cannot lead anybody else until you first lead yourself. I think we all know that, but for some reason, once we get that role, we think, well, we're not going to think about taking care of ourselves first. And there's a ton of analogies out there about it, right? The airplane analogy of putting your oxygen mask on first, right? All of those analogies are used a lot because they're true. But first, focusing inward on leading yourself and creating your own habits, routines, and rituals that are built for you so that you can effectively show up every day. And Phil, I always like to say, think about the leader, boss, manager, coach, maybe a parent, person you've had in your life who led you really effectively, and then start listing the qualities or listing their behaviors, their actions. And I know when I do this, what I found is that those people are constantly working on bettering themselves first, right? I use the phrase learning leader for my podcast because my favorite managers, bosses, and coaches were constantly in learning environments for themselves. And then that would always translate to us, and we would see them, and I would build immense amount of respect. That's how they would earn credibility. That's how they would earn commitment, right? And things I've written about is that we've all worked for that boss that we've complied to because we had to, because they're our boss and we have to comply or we'll get fired. But we've also hopefully all worked for that person that we want to commit to, right? And that's why compliance can be commanded, but commitment cannot. And don't we want to be the type of boss or manager or leader that somebody else wants to commit to? And I think regularly working on building your personal skills, your routines, your rituals, your habits of regular improvement is a great way to operate if you're trying to build a team full of committed people.
Totally agree. I totally agree. I think I want to be the manager that I wanted to be managed by.
Yes.
That's really my goal, right? And I want to get there because no manager that I've ever worked for is perfect.
Or
right?
even though like the platinum rule, like beyond the golden rule, is be the manager that person needs, right?
Yeah.
So my issue was that one of the mistakes I made, Phil, at the beginning was I just tried to hire people exactly like me with my profile, even the sports background that reminded me of myself.
Okay.
That was a mistake. Every once in a while I'd get one right from luck, but I really learned the value of diversity of thought through interviewing, through making mistakes, through making bad hires, through making good hires. And I think that's the thought of like thinking of it from their perspective of what does this specific person need, because you're going to have a set number of people that report to you and each one is different. And so I think there needs to be processes in place to get to know each of those people at their level and what it's like from their perspective, not yours. And that's hard though. And as an immature 26, 27-year-old, as I was not good at it. I thought like, well, this is how I do it. You should do it that way. Or this is how I am. You should be how I am. And that's not wise. You're not going to be a good leader thinking that way. And I wasn't. And I think that's again why I think this is a critical time in somebody's career to focus on.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I would agree. I absolutely thought I was going to hire a bunch of Phils, and that didn't happen. I even went to school to be a school teacher, and that was the only paper I didn't get an A on in college. It was one where the answer to why I teach is because I want kids to be just like me.
Is that what you said?
Yeah, I said that. Yeah. Dr. Troy Wilson, I'll never forget, man.
Was that like? Did you have like me, or you're like a young ego, or what was it?
No, so I grew up. I had a hard life growing up, right? I overcame a lot of stuff. I went in the military to high school. I feel in some ways, right, I'm kind of self-made, right? I didn't have a lot of the advantages. My parents did not go to college. We did not own a business. We had food stamps and welfare for most of my growing up. We were really poor, dude. $100. My mom made $1.61 an hour being a waitress. My dad, to date, 73 years old this month or next month. He a month from today has never filed a positive tax return because he was a dairy farmer in Wisconsin.
Wow.
So we grew up poor, dude. And so I see inner city kids, they grew up poor, right? So my hope was that they could do what be like me, right? And when in reality, to your point about leading, we have to let them lead who they are. We have to lead them as they are, not as we are.
Yeah.
And that was the big lesson, the biggest lesson actually that I learned, right? So I thought I was going in, right? We talked about the golden rule, going in to be the leader that I wanted, because you have to have a starting point, right? That's a ground zero. But from there, absolutely, then we branch out. Now I've got 15 different leadership styles that I have to be.
Yeah, I think that's how is that? Because now we never make it, but right, yeah. But you're especially from where you come from, you're in a much more comfortable situation. Like, what is that? How do you feel about that? I'm curious.
Well, some days, right, I suffer from imposter syndrome, for sure.
Really?
For sure, man. Like, how did this ever happen to me?
Yeah.
How did this ever happen to me? Like, why me? Why did this happen to me? Right. And then, thankfully, then Russell Wilson speaks to my brain. Why not me? Right. I remember Russell said that when he came out of college, when he came out of Wisconsin, that was his big thing, right? Why not me? I'm 5'11" and a half. I've got big hands and I'm a great quarterback. I can lead a team. Yeah. Why not me? So that's a lot of it. And then honestly, some days, Ryan, I just can't believe it. I mean, dude, the fact I put 87,000 miles on in 7 months last year on airplanes, I will spend by the end of this week, I will have spent 16 or 17 nights in a hotel by the 30th of the month.
Wow.
I didn't stay at a hotel like ever growing up. So just that, that's bizarre, man. Sometimes there's some cognitive dissonance there where between the person I see and the person that I am is very different. But certainly I'm proud of the work that I've done.
Do you think though, I would think growing up in that environment developed grit and work ethic? Do you think that's a big reason as to why
yeah, absolutely. Nobody outworks me, dude.
You don't have kids yet, do you?
Not yet. Nope.
So when you have kids and you're able to, this is something my wife and I talk about, and I talk about with my brother too. How like you want them to develop the same grit and work ethic you did, yet they're going to grow up in a
Not
different
suffering.
environment. Like they're going to grow up on a nice beach or with money. How are you going to try to develop grit in your kids, knowing that it was developed in you because of a hard upbringing, and your kids will not have the same?
Yeah, that's a big question, man. And I constantly think about that. And I think that's one of the reasons until recently I've not wanted to have kids, because that is a big question.
Do you now?
I do now. Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's a big change. And I think one of the big things is, well, they don't have to work for everything. They have to work for something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's sports, forensics, chess club, academic ball, whatever that is. You have to work for something, even something that you're not necessarily good at, that helps you get better and you can't quit, right? Because talent is great. Don't get me wrong, man. Talent is great. And, if you're a pro athlete, talent gets you so far, but it doesn't take you over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Talent is not the difference maker. When you get to, man, you're different than your brother and some other Ohio State linebacker is the tenacity and the discipline and the willingness to do what other people won't do longer than other people would do. And I think that's the same true with leaders, right? I mean, it's not necessarily that we work 12 hours a day. It's that we work smarter, we develop better processes, and we're able to work more effectively and more efficiently than before.
And part of it too is the consistency to show up and do it every day. Like, it's not sexy at all to say that, but like if you talk about, I think you mentioned my brother AJ. Like, AJ is a fantastic world-class athlete, but part of what made him who he was he missed 2 games in his NFL career. He played 11 seasons, missed 2 games. And the consistency to show up every single day is kind of been ingrained in us from our parents from a very young age. Like, you don't miss practice, you don't miss school, you don't miss assignments, right? You're there for your teammates. You're accountable, right? You're reliable, like all these unsexy words, Phil, right? But if you're consistently behaving in this manner day after day after day, right? Saying like, I'm gonna show up and do the work on a daily basis. I think that is a big part of the battle here that not everybody can do. And I'm very lucky, again, to have been brought up in an environment where that was espoused to us by my parents' actions even more than their words. And as you know, kids are going to follow actions far more than what their parents try to tell them what to do.
Yeah. Well, so are your direct reports,
Absolutely.
Right? At the end of your book, you talk about lead your team.
Yeah.
Well, you lead your team. I think you could include that by example, which then ties back to your first point of lead yourself. So talk to me about leading your team, Ryan, because I think that's something that a lot of people miss. They think that it's some, step-by-step checklist. Do you believe that it's checklist, or do you believe it's more art?
Well, I think leadership is certainly a bit of both art and science. There are different styles of leading, right? I have a more introverted background and makeup, and if I do any of the psychology test or whatever, that's going to pop up on me. So that doesn't in the past that was stated that you couldn't be a leader. That has definitely changed over time, and we all have moments where we go back and forth between those, and where it's a sliding scale. But I think when it comes to leading your team, you said it exactly right, Phil. Like, I want to be the type of person who's going to show up every day, expect excellence of myself, right? Have high standards, hold myself to those standards, be accountable, take ownership in my actions and my behaviors. And then because I actually like work with quarterbacks, high schoolers, college kids, and I say, like, in order for your team to win, right? The quarterback has the biggest impact on winning or losing a game, perhaps in any sport, that and probably a starting pitcher. But in order to hold the other 10 guys in the huddle accountable, you have to first hold yourself accountable to these lofty standards. So you have to regularly be looking in the mirror, putting right up to your face. Am I actually living up to these standards? Am I doing the work that I need to be doing on a daily basis in the weight room, in the film room, preparing, taking every rep of practice like it's a game, right? Am I doing that? Because I cannot ask that of anybody else on my team, whether it's in sports or in business, unless I'm doing it first. And so, like Simon Sinek says, leaders eat last. I agree, but also leaders go first when it comes to actual behavior on a daily basis. And that is the way I try to lead. It's not hard. It's not easy. It's not for everyone. I think leadership is a choice, right? You know, your friend Seth Godin said that leadership is a choice. You have to actively make that choice on a daily basis if you want to be an excellent leader. And that's why it's not for everyone, because it's hard. And if you don't, my dad, you know, people ask my dad all the time, hey, you know, how do you raise kids to get college scholarships and go play in the NFL? What do you do? What did you do when they were young? And he goes, you know, I think like just showing up was like 80% of the battle. And they're like, what do you mean? He goes, well, they want to shoot free throws. I'm going to rebound. They want to go to the batting cage. I'm going to go and I'm going to put the coins in the machine. They want to throw passes in the backyard. I'm going to be in the backyard throwing passes. No matter what happens during the day, you got to show up. Your presence is required. And I think that again, not sexy, but another part of what it means to lead other people.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to show up every day. Show up big. When you can't, I would actually say, don't show up 80%, stay home.
Yeah.
I used to do this. My boss, I would tell her, because I know that my passion, my attitude, my energy can take the team all the way up or all the way down. And so I would call him, I'd call Cindy. I'd say, Cindy, it's an 80% day. I got to go. I can't be here. I don't want to infect my team with that.
I interviewed Scott Belsky on my show, and Scott told me he started Behance and got acquired by Adobe, and he still works there. And he said, you are the emotional thermostat for your team. Great point. And that's why, like, the saying I have is either if we're going to do it, then we're going to do it. So we're going to do a live podcast. Well, then we're going to do it, right? It's going to be like the nicest venue, great microphones, incredible lighting, the best camera, video guys we can find. Like, if we're going to do it, then we're going to do it. And if we're going to go like 60, 70, we're not going to do it. So I think that has always been a mentality of mine, that if you're going to choose to do it, then go all the way. Don't just say, well, let's just go, you know, see what we can do. I'd rather not do it. I'd rather go for it. That doesn't mean you don't test things or try new things. It's different. You should certainly be like, have that experimenter's mindset, but it also means if we're going to choose to do it, then we're going to do it.
Absolutely. I love that, man. I love that. And if we're transitioning into management, right, if we're moving from an individual contributor, you got to commit. You got to be all in. Can't have compliance. It's one of the things you talk about in your book, Welcome to Management. So if you're going to give us one more insight, Ryan, one more thing that we need to do if we're moving from individual contributor into management, what would that be?
So let's say I would start thinking about this and having a plan long before the interview. And one piece of advice that was very helpful for me when I was an individual contributor, and I still do it to this day, was I was told by Rex Caswell, my friend, mentor. He was VP of sales when I was a sales professional as an individual contributor. He said, listen, a piece of advice. I want you to have a notebook, and on one side of it, write yes, and on the other side of it, write no. And on the yes side, that is everything your manager does that you think is helpful, that is good, that is being a good boss, being a good leader. And then on the no side, that's all the bad things that they do. Right? Because one day you're going to become a manager. I'm certain of it. And when you do, I want you to be able to look back and reflect on what it was like to be a rep, because you will lose perspective quickly. I've seen it happen in just about every manager that I work with. It's easy to lose the perspective of what it's like in their shoes. So keep this notebook. Make sure that you refer to it often once you do become a manager. So for the next 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years, I'm writing on a weekly basis everything my manager does that is a yes, so that is really good and helpful, and everything that is bad. And I still have this notebook. It's now been transitioned into a Google Doc, but to be able to refer back to say, this is helpful. This is what it's like to be in their position, not thinking of it from my top down, but thinking of it from theirs bottom up. So in a way, then you flip the organizational chart, right? And it's me here, them here. I report to them. I serve them. I am working to be their leader. And I think that's a big mentality shift for me that was very helpful. And I wouldn't have done it, though, if I had not gotten the advice from a really great boss who hired me.
Awesome. That's great advice, man. Great advice. So, folks, if you want to get more from Ryan, check out learningleader.com. And I encourage you, get a copy of his book. It's coming out on the 28th, right? Right there. Welcome to Management. I've read the PDF. It is fantastic. I enjoy Ryan's podcast. He's a super smart guy, someone I learn a ton from. So, Ryan, last question, buddy. If people want to connect with you, what's your favorite social media and how would they get there?
I Twitter's great, at RyanHawk12. Instagram's the same handle. So Twitter is probably the best place to get a hold of me. And if for those who are not watching but are on their phone, you can text the word learners with an S, learners, to 44222, and then you can get directly in touch with me as well.
Awesome. Learners, the 44222.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Ryan. Thanks so much for spending some time with us today, folks. I hope you learned a little bit about how you can lead yourself, how you can lead your team, how you can welcome to management. Thanks so much, Ryan. Have a great day, buddy.
Thanks, Phil. Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely my pleasure.